Nathan moved down the narrow aisle, each step heavier than the last. He didn't care where he sat, only that it would all be over soon. When he reached his seat, a soft voice beside him said, "That's our window, Mommy." Then came the small thud of shoes against the seat in front of him. He turned his head just as a little girl climbed up, her green backpack almost swallowing her tiny shoulders. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You look tired, sir." The words caught him off guard. Not rude, not curious, just honest. He cleared his throat. "I'm fine." But the lie sat stiff in his chest. A few minutes later, she reached into a crumpled napkin and held out half a cookie. "For you." He hesitated, then took it. "Thank you." She smiled like that single word meant something. Then her head found his arm, soft and trusting, and soon her breathing slowed. He glanced at the mother beside her, head tilted, asleep from exhaustion. There were faint shadows under her eyes, the kind only life could carve. For the first time in years, Nathan didn't think about the next meeting or the next headline. He just watched this child sleep and felt something small but real move inside him, something he thought he'd buried a long time ago. Elena woke with a quick breath, startled, eyes darting toward her daughter. When she saw Sophie resting safely against Nathan's arm, her shoulders eased. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice rough from sleep. "I didn't mean to, she must have wandered over." Nathan shook his head. "She's fine. She fell asleep a while ago." Elena gave a tired smile. "I just finished 3 night shifts. Thought I could stay awake." He looked at her, really looked, and saw the fatigue beneath her calm. "You work in healthcare?" "Yeah. Nurse assistant, technically," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Temporary position, but it pays the bills." Nathan nodded, unsure what else to say. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was honest. Elena glanced at Sophie and then at him. "She thinks strangers are just friends we haven't met yet." Nathan almost smiled. "She's not wrong." Elena laughed quietly, the sound warm and soft. Nathan looked down at the half cookie still resting in his hand. He hadn't realized he'd kept it. When the plane landed, no one said goodbye. Elena gathered Sophie gently, and Nathan stepped into the aisle. Their eyes met for only a second, no words, just a quiet recognition that something human had passed between them, something simple and unspoken. Then she was gone. Nathan loosened his tie the moment he stepped inside. The silence met him like it always did, steady, obedient, hollow. He poured himself a drink, but the burn felt weaker than usual. The sound of that little voice still echoed somewhere in his head. "You look tired, sir." He set the glass down and stared at the photo frame on the shelf. Emily's smile looked frozen in another lifetime. 10 months of marriage, then headlights, rain, a phone call, and the sound of his own breathing breaking apart. After that, he built walls, schedules, numbers, meetings, anything that didn't ask how he felt. But that night on the plane wouldn't fade. A child's hand offering half a cookie had slipped through the cracks he swore no one could reach. It wasn't much, but it was something. He sat down, elbows on his knees, fingers pressed to his forehead. For the first time in years, the emptiness didn't feel clean or quiet, it felt heavy. Messy. Alive. What if the smallest kindness from a stranger was the first crack in a wall built by grief? Nathan moved down the hospital corridor, his thoughts fixed on lab results and charts he didn't fully understand. His mother's condition was worsening, and no amount of logic could fix what was failing inside her. Then he heard a voice, steady, calm, reassuring. "Slow and steady, Mr. Donovan. You're doing great." He froze. He knew that voice. When he turned, she was there. Elena. Her hair tied back, scrubs slightly wrinkled, one hand steadying an old man with a walker. Her tone was different now, confident, focused, but unmistakable. Before he could speak, a small blur of pink came running from around the corner. "Uncle Airplane." Sophie's voice filled the hallway as she threw her arms around his legs. Nathan blinked, stunned, then crouched to meet her. "Hey there," he said, smiling before he could stop himself. Elena turned at the sound, her eyes widening. "You," she breathed, half laughing, half startled. "I didn't expect to see you here." He stood slowly. "My mother's a patient here." The air between them shifted, recognition layered with surprise, something almost like fate. Sophie looked up at both of them, proud of her reunion. Nathan glanced at Elena, uncertain if the moment was coincidence or something more. Either way, it unsettled him, and for reasons he couldn't name, he didn't want to walk away. Later that day, they crossed paths again near the nurse's desk. Nathan tried to sound casual, but curiosity tugged at him. "You've been here long?" Elena nodded. "A year. Mostly nights." She hesitated, then added, "Wasn't the plan, though." "What was?" he asked. She gave a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Harvard Med. I dropped out halfway through my second year." Nathan blinked. "Harvard?" She shrugged. "Yeah. Things changed. Sophie wasn't part of the plan, neither was raising her alone. So, I traded textbooks for shifts." For a moment, she looked down, her voice softer. "This is just temporary," she whispered. "I used to dream of being a surgeon." Nathan didn't know what to say. The way she said it, quiet, without self-pity, hit something deep in him. It wasn't failure he heard. It was strength. The kind that keeps moving even when life doesn't care what you planned. That night, sleep refused him. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of her voice replaying in his mind. For the first time in years, someone else's story mattered more than his own. And he didn't want that feeling to stop. Over the next few weeks, Nathan found excuses to stop by the hospital more often. He told himself it was to check on his mother's progress, but that wasn't the truth. Each visit drew him back to the nurse's station, where Elena always seemed too tired to notice how remarkable she looked while carrying the weight of everyone else's pain. One evening, he left 2 anatomy books on the counter, old but pristine, the kind she once studied from. No note, no mention. The next morning, she found him near the coffee cart and said quietly, "You left those, didn't you?" He tried to sound indifferent. "They were just collecting dust." She smiled, small but real. "Thank you." Their conversations grew from seconds to minutes, always careful, always steady. When Sophie joined her mother some evenings, she ran straight to Nathan. "Uncle Star," she'd squeal, waving the little paper crown she made for him. Nathan couldn't explain what that name did to him. It made him feel seen in a way he hadn't in years, and that scared him. He stayed kind, but distant, afraid that too much warmth might break something he couldn't rebuild. Yet every quiet act of care drew them closer, one small gesture at a time. Fate can whisper through ordinary acts, but every gift carries a hidden cost. It was late when Nathan stopped by to drop off paperwork. The corridors were quiet, lights dimmed. As he passed the break room, he noticed the door half open and paused. Inside, Elena sat slumped on a bench, still in scrubs, her shoes off, hair loose around her face. Sophie lay curled in her lap, fast asleep. Elena's arms wrapped around her daughter, her head tilted slightly, eyes closed. She looked utterly spent, but peaceful. Nathan stood there for a moment, just watching. Then he slipped off his coat and draped it gently over her shoulders. She stirred but didn't wake. He sat down beside them on the floor, back against the wall, close enough to hear Sophie's slow, even breathing. Something in him softened, the edges of years of silence worn down by this quiet moment. An older nurse passed by the doorway, stopped, and smiled softly. "No one's ever done that for her," she whispered. Nathan didn't answer. He just looked at them, the woman who never asked for help and the child who had unknowingly saved him from himself. For the first time in years, peace filled him. But beneath it came a fear he hadn't felt since Emily, the fear of losing something before he even had the right to hold it. That night, Nathan sat alone in his office long after everyone had gone. The glow of the screen was the only light left. He wasn't sure why he typed her name, maybe curiosity, maybe something else he didn't want to name. Elena Brooks. One result appeared. A job application from 2 years ago, marked rejected. His company's hospital. The reason, insufficient credentials, background inconsistency. No interview. No follow-up. Nathan stared at the screen, jaw tightening. His name was on every letterhead, every policy. He'd built a system that turned her away before anyone had even listened. The guilt came quick and sharp. He scrolled through her notes, saw her grades, brilliant, unfinished, and imagined the moment she must have opened that rejection. Alone. He spent the rest of the night rewriting what his company had done wrong. A new initiative, training and second chances for those who'd left medicine behind for reasons that didn't define them. No press, no announcement, just quiet repair. He didn't tell her. He couldn't. But kindness has a way of finding its source. 2 days later, she stood in his office doorway, her face pale, eyes burning. "You went through my file," she said. Nathan rose from his chair, startled by the sharpness in her voice. "Elena." She cut him off. "You went through my file." Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" He took a step toward her. "I wasn't trying to invade your privacy. I just wanted to." "To what?" she snapped. "Fix my life. Pull strings for the poor single mother who couldn't finish school." "That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Nathan?" Her voice broke. "Because it feels like pity dressed up as kindness." He shook his head, words coming too late. "You didn't get a fair chance. I was only trying to make it right." "I don't need saving," she said, tears forming. "I needed to be seen for what I can do, not what you think I need." He reached out, but she stepped back. The air between them turned heavy, filled with everything unsaid. "I trusted you," she whispered. "And you turned me into someone to rescue." Before he could answer, she was gone, door closing softly behind her, leaving him standing in the silence she left behind. When help crosses into pride, even kindness can become betrayal. The call came just past midnight. Nathan almost didn't answer, until he saw her name on the screen. Her voice was shaking. "Sophie's burning up. 103.7. I can't get it down. I don't know what to do." "I'm coming," he said, already grabbing his keys. He didn't think, didn't pause. When he reached her apartment, she was pacing, hair pulled back, eyes wild with fear. Sophie lay limp on the couch, cheeks flushed, breaths short. Nathan didn't say a word. He scooped the little girl into his arms, felt the heat radiating from her skin. "We're going to the hospital," he said, firm but calm. Elena followed without a sound. Hours blurred into machines and whispers. Sophie's fever finally broke after treatment, her breathing steady again. Elena sat beside her bed, shoulders shaking, head in her hands. Nathan pulled up a chair and spoke quietly. "She's okay." Elena nodded but didn't lift her face. I've spent so long doing everything alone. I didn't know how to let someone help without feeling small." He reached out, his voice low. "You're not small, Elena. You're the strongest person I've met." When she finally looked up, tears glimmered in her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nathan did something he hadn't done in years, he took someone's hand, and didn't let go. The doctor's words stayed with him long after the meeting ended. "We're running out of time." Nathan sat beside his mother's bed, watching her chest rise and fall in shallow rhythm. She'd always been unbreakable. Now, every breath felt like a countdown. He tried everything, calls, favors, contacts, but nothing changed. No match. No hope. Days later, Elena appeared in the doorway, still in her scrubs, her voice quiet but steady. "Nathan." He looked up. One glance at her face told him she wasn't there to offer comfort. She was there with a decision. "I did the test," she said. He frowned. "What test?" "The donor match for your mother." Her eyes held his. "I'm compatible." He froze. "No. Absolutely not." "I'm healthy," she said, calm, unflinching. "I already spoke to the team. I'm eligible." Nathan stood, his voice breaking. "You have a daughter. You can't do this. This isn't your responsibility. She needs a donor, Nathan. And I can help." He shook his head, desperate. "You don't owe me this. Or her." Elena stepped closer. "I know the risks. But she gave you life. Let me help give her a second one." His voice cracked. "You think I could live with myself if something happened to you?" She reached out, placing her hand on his chest, steady and kind. "You've already given me mine," she whispered. He closed his eyes, breath trembling. "Elena, please." "I want to," she said softly. In that moment, Nathan realized it wasn't sacrifice she was offering, it was grace. And it terrified him. The waiting felt endless. Hours stretched and folded until time meant nothing. Nathan sat outside the operating room, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the door that held everything he loved. When it finally opened, the surgeon's nod said enough. His mother had made it. Elena had made it. He didn't remember standing, only the rush of breath leaving his chest like he'd been holding it for years. Days later, Irene stirred, her voice faint but sure. "You're here," she whispered. Nathan smiled through tears. "And you're still here." Her gaze drifted to the doorway where Elena stood, pale but standing. Irene reached out a trembling hand. "My brave, foolish girl." Elena laughed softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just glad you're okay." When Irene's fingers closed around hers, something unspoken passed between them, two women tied by a single act of courage. Later, in the children's ward, Nathan waited with Sophie, who was busy lining up stuffed animals on the floor. When Elena entered, her step still careful, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small napkin. Inside, half a cookie. "I was thinking about that night," he said quietly. "The one where everything changed for me." She smiled, eyes soft. "Sophie's cookie." He nodded. Then he knelt. "I don't have a ring," he said, voice unsteady, "but I have this. Will you build something real with me?" Elena pressed a hand to her mouth, laughter tangled with tears. Before she could speak, Sophie clapped her hands. "Now you're not tired anymore." Nathan pulled her close, his voice trembling. "No, sweetheart. You woke me up." As sunlight spills across their new beginning, a girl with a green backpack runs through the grass, her laughter filling the air. Nathan watches, smiling, but behind his eyes, a quiet question remains: can something born from loss ever truly last?